Hey everyone, today we're doing something a bit different. You'll notice there's no game footage going on in the background. That's because I really want you to focus on what I'm saying, even more so than usual. If you're a creator in any artistic field who stakes it out on your own rather than having the backing of a big label or publisher or company, or even if you just enjoy the works of indie artists, then this does concern you. I love the underground, or moreover, I love what the underground is capable of. When it comes to music, you'll find some of the most dedicated, passionate, and talented artists making all of zero net profit from their music and merch, because all the profits get funneled right back into the band's costs of keeping on. But they soldier on regardless, for the love of the music, the love of the shows, and the thought that they're creating something that lasts, and likely has more meaning to more people than most of their day jobs. And what's more, there's a personal touch to these truly independent artists that you might not get as much of from the big-name musicians who don't honestly have the time to shake every hand that gets extended to them. A lot of it comes down to the fact that a lot of indie bands who lack the distribution apparatus that comes from label support will be shipping their merch and music out of their own homes, and having a very personal relationship with their listeners because of that. Now, I do have a lot of good stories of bands who have really gone out of their way for me in various ways, but that's better served as the topic of its own video if that's something you guys would want to see. So it sucks. It honestly and infuriatingly sucks when these kinds of artists get entangled against their will in a situation that seems designed to try and screw them over. What recently happened to Oregon-based power prog metal band Tanagra is a corporate nightmare pulled wholesale out of the kind of ridiculous bureaucracy in Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Out of the blue, Swiss audio company Nagra handed down a lawsuit against Tanagra for trademark infringement on the basis that the names of the two companies were similar? Is this really a road that we want to go down? Do we even need to spend time picking this apart? Never mind that they're not actually the same name, which is really all you need right there. Never mind that Tanagra, being sci-fi geeks who proudly wear it on their sleeves, plucked their name from Star Trek lore as confirmed by the band. Now, trademark law exists for a reason. It's why a video game company can't make a game called Mass Effect, starring a General Shepard trying to save galactic civilization from the mechanical Rippers. And we understand that companies are required to enforce violations of trademark law where they crop up, or else they risk losing their legal claim to the trademarked thing. For example, they got away with it, why can't we? That sort of slippery slope. But there has to be a line drawn somewhere, guys. If the band's branding, logo, and name were lifted wholesale from those of the audio company, yeah, then Nagra would have a case here. But that's not the case. Alas, here's the rub. Being a true indie band with no label support, Tanagra had no financial options here except to just take it, legally speaking. Their Bandcamp page immediately put all their shirts and CDs at $1 each plus shipping, and the downloads of both their albums at Name Your Price. This was because they suddenly needed to liquidate as much of their stock as they could before they became legally unable to make money off it. And that's the part of this story that should make any indie artist of any medium, and anybody who values any indie scene, take pause. Just one small part of what's great about these kinds of indie artists is that while this isn't their day job, this is the part of their life that's really reaching out and touching people across the world. Someone might work a call floor or a deep fryer by day, but by night they're creating things that will last purely for the passion and the love of the music. The other side of the coin is that if someone up top decides to not only punch down, but punch so far and so deep down that they're falcon punching the Earth's core, what recourse do you really have in that position? Because passion doesn't win lawsuits when you can't afford to lawyer up for an ugly, protracted battle. Needless to say, Nagra found itself paddling up Bad Press Creek with its mouth wide open, with scores of Tanagra fans, as well as fans of not being complete assholes, raining social media hell on Nagra audio and vowing never to buy their products. In short, Nagra found an amazingly efficient way to tarnish their once decent name overnight. Only, Nagra then claimed to not have had knowledge of the lawsuit, and in their correspondences with the band, they were quick to distance themselves from the suit. They instead placed the blame squarely on the trigger-happy trademark lawyers of their legal division. Oh, so they're not a real-life Mr. Burns, they just have zero control of how other divisions of their own company are being managed? What? And as this case is still ongoing, it won't be speculated here as to whether the official explanation is the complete truth, because it's honestly not my place. But the case has headed to a good place because the law firm Foundation Law Group has reached out to represent Tanagra pro bono, because contrary to half the jokes you've ever heard, there are some really upstanding lawyers out there. And as of the publishing of this video, that is as far as the case has gotten. In the meantime, let's think about this. Imagine all the bands out there whose name is similar to some other property. Not even the same, just similar. It's a moot point, because unless you straight up make up a word, there's a chance that the band name is going to be similar to something else that happens to exist in this world, which may be protected by a definitely stretched and abused definition of the relevant copyright laws. And sometimes the madness goes even farther. If you're up on your power metal history, you might remember when the music player Rhapsody sued the power metal band Rhapsody for infringement. The band did have the backing of a respectable label, but still, they had to change their name to Rhapsody of Fire. People thought the name was silly at the time, but you know what? I'm all for them taking the bare minimum of effort to get around the lawsuit, because the whole lawsuit was complete lunacy to begin with. Dig on this. Rhapsody the music player began around the turn of the millennium. Rhapsody the band put out their first full-length album in 1997, and their first demo under that name dates back to 1995. So Rhapsody the metal band had the name first. Never mind that the two brands most definitely came to the name independently and should have both been allowed to keep it, but that is definitely the most infamous abuse of copyright law to date in the metal world. Being sued for copyright infringement by someone who thought of the name after you? My God, that's not a lawsuit, that's a rejected Doctor Who villain. And oh, right, isn't Tanagra a made-up word to begin with? Never mind, nobody's safe ever. And no, it's not as simple as doing your Google foo before you commit to a name, because remember now, we've somehow blown this up to include words that are kinda sorta like the trademark words in question, which after a certain point can basically be stretched to incorporate every sound utterable by a human tongue. Fortunately, your indie dub acid step project whose name is only pronounceable via several verses of Inuit throat singing should be safe, for now. Combine that with the fact that many of these indie creators simply don't have the scratch to fight such a lawsuit, and you're left with this whole Tanagra mess setting a potentially horrifying precedent, wherein pretty much all creators big and small are left at the whims of companies who may or may not have a firm leash on their legal divisions, who may or may not be fazed by social media reenacting the burning of Sodom on their feeds, and who may or may not have the slightest conscience for whether their legal targets they're picking have any rhyme, reason, or sense to them. So, it's a good thing that various corporations, companies, and otherwise legally powerful entities the world over have shown us over the past several hundred years that they are on the whole peaceful and equitable organizations that scarcely ever act out of pettiness or spite, right? On second thought, we can run screaming now. I don't think it would be a good idea for me to speculate about the end point of all this, because I'm not about to assume I have the qualifications to wade into an ongoing legal case. But I hope that it ends in such a way that Tanagra can continue making money off of the music that they've already composed and recorded. Everyone here in the indie scene is pulling for them, both as performers and listeners. And I mean all indie artists. I come from the indie author community, and I can tell you, Tanagra, that every medium of indie artist, as well as those with major backing, are pulling for you in this. At the end of the day, creators of all types speak a certain common language. As for Nagra, I hadn't heard of them before this, but regardless of the excuses they happen to be giving for how this happened, it's going to be hard for them to come back from this far as reputation goes among the music scene. They're learning that you can't punch down this hard and this far without the ground buckling back at you. The best we can do is to encourage more people to be less like Nagra's copyright people and more like the good souls at the Foundation Law Group. Because at the end of the day, this is about the decisions that people make in a position where they can bring harm to others or to help them. This has been a very different edition of Music Mondays, but I felt it needed to be said. I hope this has been enlightening, or at least a little enjoyable. And if this is of concern to you, if you think this sets a terrible precedent, please share this with whomever you feel will be affected by it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for a bit of a more conventional Music Mondays. Bye-bye.